Today, we are going to talk about Ableton racks. I'm going to try to explain signal flow and Ableton's customizability to control a lot of different parameters. Very condensed and conveniently is the best. So, Command T, we're going to insert an audio track. I'm going to do like a stock vocal effects template, if you will, just to showcase this example. So, for that, we are going to have 2 reverbs, 2 delays, and maybe like 2 choruses. Let's actually pick a preset out of hybrid reverb. Let's do something short, bathtub percussion, right? So what we want to do is group this. We're going to go down to this 3 little line button right here. We're just going to show the chains. If I duplicate this, we basically have 2 parallel signals of audio side by side. So say I was just recording vocals straight onto this track. It would go in through the inputs, pass through this utility. It's only one version of the vocal now. And then when it hits this, it gets split into 2 paths that are parallel on top of each other, right? So they basically get split 2 ways, and then they get combined at the end of this here. So knowing that, I'm going to throw a whole bunch of different effects plugins that I want in my chain. So we've got our verb short, verb long, dry, wet, all the way up on both of these. Call that delay 1, do like a slap delay, delay 2, chorus 1, chorus 2. So now we've got 6 parallel chains. Let's do an example. So I got a vocal. It's my boy Harry Witz, the GOAT. So now if I play this vocal, you're gonna hear all of these full wet, no dry, all on top of each other. It's probably going to sound crazy. Let's hear it. Really loud, really crazy, right? So the idea is that I'm able just to use these one at a time, right? So if I turn them all down, let's pull them all down to 0. Now we hear nothing, right? Because there's no dry signal coming through. So create a chain by right-clicking on one of these. Call this dry. Put it at the top. So now dry has nothing on it, right? So dry is literally just the incoming audio going straight through this chain. And then whatever else I add with these volume sliders is the effect on top of the dry, right? So we've got just the dry right now. Breaking my back just to know your name. Let's try our verb short all the way up. Breaking my back just to know your name. Cool. Let's try no dry. Sometimes all verb versus short verb is kind of cool. Breaking my back just to know your name. Crazy. Sounds weird. I'm going to turn our gain into this down a little bit because it is clipping a bit. So now we can kind of go through and sample breaking my back just to know your name. All of our effects one by one. Breaking my back just to know your name. Tight. Delay 1. Breaking my back just to know your name. That's a weird one. Let's find a different one. We're going to hot swap this. Hot swap key. You can literally hit this little button right here. Whatever this is, little 2 arrows, and we can go into our presets for these plugins and just pick another one. Let's try slapback. Cool. I bet that's better. Dry wet all the way up. Breaking my back just to know your name. That's tight. We like that. Let's keep going. Chorus 1. Breaking my back just to know your name. Love it. Sounds cool. Breaking my back just to know your name. I like that. All right, chorus 2. Breaking my back just to know your name. Sick. 17 tracks and I've had it with this kid. So you get the point, but basically we've got all of our effects on these chains that are all parallel. So we're going to take it a step further. I'm going to delete this dry track. We're going to group this entire thing now. Command G. So this is going a level deeper. So now we've got the audio coming in from here, currently hitting this one chain, which has all of these chains. Now it gets split to our 6 effects and then summed all the way back to 1 over here, right? So we're going to call this chain dry and effects. This is literally how I would mix vocals. So we've got all our dry right here. I want a little bit of the reverb. Reverb short. Breaking my back just to know you. Why not? Breaking my back just to know you. A little bit of the long reverb. Breaking my, a little bit of this delay. Breaking my back just to know your name. A little bit of this delay. Breaking my back just to know your name. A little bit of this chorus. Breaking my back just to know your name. A little bit of this one. 17 tracks and I've... Why not, right? All 6 of them going. So the reason that I like to separate all dry and all effects is so that I can hard kill this at any point that I want. All of the effects. If I want to automate this, hit A, B for the pencil tool. I can just cut it right there. All of the effects at once. So then 17 tracks and I'm there with this kid. I would have to do that 6 times in a row if I just had them all in the same chain, which I often do this because I want to do hard, full dry, no effects, automations all the time. Are you looking for exclusive production, guitar, and drum loops made by yours truly right here in my studio? Hours of live stream content on how I make my music, remix stems, vocal chains, and even personal feedback on your music. Then head on over to my Patreon. That's patreon.com/HarryWasHere. Command delete to delete that automation. And now, even deeper, what we can do is add some effects to the entire all wet vocal chain, right? So we can do like an EQ, EQ8. We're gonna put that right here. So now I can EQ all of my effects with one EQ. All 6 of these channels pass through this EQ, but our dry does not. Our dry stays on top of it and goes out with no processing. You know, we'd want to take some low end and some high end out of all of our effects, right? Even cooler, I can take a compressor, put that after the EQ, and what we're gonna do is we're gonna have the lead dry vocal sidechain the effects so that they get out of the way when the lead vocal is playing. So we're kind of just getting the tail of the effects. So we're gonna use this. We're gonna set this to the name of our channel, 18 Audio. So now the tails of the effects come up after the dry and not during. 17 tracks and I've had it with this game. Pretty cool. So the last stage of all of this in Ableton Rack madness is we can assign these little knobs called macros to whatever we want. So we don't have to look at all this stuff, right? It's a lot of shit to think about in your mind. We could basically take the most important stuff that you would want to change for this entire rack, condense it down to, I'm thinking like, let's try 10 knobs, right? So these are called macros, right? These are just arbitrary knobs that I can assign to anything. Let's do dry to macro 1. So all I do is just right click on our little volume slider right here for dry, map to macro 1. Let's call it dry all just so it's very clear. I think it makes sense to go underneath dry all to macro 6 and do effects. So let's map that to macro 6, effects all. So now maybe we want to control our EQ, low cut and high cut. We can very easily map that to macro 2. And then that's our low cut. Our high cut, let's map below it to macro 7. Cool. So now we got control of our EQ right here on this knob. Same thing with our all dry and all effects. So one more step we have to do is, since this is like a group chain within a group chain, we have to map these to these macros that we're not going to use, and then map these macros to the main macros that we are going to use. So let's just map each one of these, macro 1, because we're mapping to this set of macros within this group chain, not the master group chain. So we're going to take this and map this to macro 3. And now macro 3 is our verb short. Blast it all the way up. Let's do this one to macro 8. So our reverbs are top and bottom, our delays top and bottom, and our chorus top and bottom. So we'll do macro 8 on this one. And then this is our delay 1. So let's map this to macro 4 and our delay 2, 9. And then our 2 choruses. Now we've got our verb 1. And I'm just clicking on these and hitting Command R so I can rename them very quickly. We can turn basically all of this off, click those, and boom. We've got our whole rack, 200, 8K for our high cut, and then turn each one of these knobs all the way down. Because as you're mixing these, you're just going to kind of pull them up and then test them one by one and sort of find a blend. You can double click on any of these knobs and they'll go to 0. Let's try our delay 1. 17 tracks and I've had it cool. With it. It's kind of quiet. We turn it up a little bit more. Maybe there's too much low end in that. So 17 tracks and keep in mind that affects the low end of all of the effects, because you don't really need all that low end anyways. You're kind of just looking for the mid-range. 17 tracks. Pretty powerful. And then say maybe you want to just have like a space that you've got like all effects, like no dry. So we could hear this. 17 tracks. Kill the dry entirely. And it's being compressed with our compressor. We can take our dry wet of our compressor. Actually, let's do our threshold for our compressor. Map this to macro 11. So now we got our threshold for our compressor right there. Kind of just jacked up my whole order of stuff over here. I should have thought of that before I did it, but nonetheless. All in a rack. And you can do this with anything. It's the coolest shit. No other DAW has this. And when people ask me, oh, what's your vocal chain? What's your vocal chain? They're looking at that and they're like, what is that? And it's a lot of stuff, but you can't do this and control in such depth so many different plugins. In this case, I'm using Ableton stock plugins. But in my real vocal chain, I'm using my nice plugins, and this entire concept works for those too. Crazy stuff. Stay tuned for more.